I would like to welcome everyone to the City of Gardner Planning Commission meeting for Tuesday, February 25th, 2020. Appreciate everyone attending. If you haven't signed in on the sign-up sheet that's at the table in the back room, if you would please do that. I now call the meeting to order. If you would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we do roll call, I just want to inform everyone that item number 2 on the regular agenda, the Prairie Trace A, B, C, and D are going to be moved to item number 1, so we'll hit that as soon as we get done with the other items at the beginning of the meeting. And we'll start with our roll call to our far right. McNear here.
Deaton here.
Simmons Lee here.
Bowden here.
Hanson here.
Mater here.
Ford here.
Okay, we have everyone in attendance with the consent agenda now. All matters listed within the consent agenda have been distributed to each member of the Planning Commission for study. These items are considered to be routine and will be enacted upon by one motion with no separate discussion. If separate discussion desired on an item from either the Planning Commission or from the floor, that item may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. We have one item on the consent agenda. It's the meeting minutes from January 28th, 2020. Would anyone like that removed? All those in favor of accepting the consent agenda, state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 7 to 0. Okay, our new item number 1, Prairie Trace. I'm going to inform everyone that items A, B, C, and D, which are all the zoning changes, have been deferred to March 24th, 2020 meeting. So we will have that item on March 24th, 2020. Okay. All right. Our second item for tonight is regular agenda item, New Life Community Church, FDP-20-01. See.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Bob Case with the Planning Department. This request is for New Life Community Church. The request is for a final development plan for a church on approximately 11.65 acres. Subject property was part of a preliminary development plan and preliminary plat that received approval by the Plan Commission at their March 26, 2019 meeting. Property was rezoned from C2 to ACP2 by the governing body at its April 15th meeting, 2019. And then the final plat was approved by the Planning Commission on October 22nd of last year as well. And the governing body accepted dedications back in November of 2019. This is a view of the property that's basically taken right at the corner of Gardner Road and 188th Street. The subject property is approximately about 770 feet east of Gardner Road, as depicted on the aerial. The proposed final development plan for this site, again, includes about 71 acres of, includes about 11.95 acres of undeveloped farmland. Developer is proposing a 1,092-seat large assembly church on approximately 11.5 acres. This site is consistent with the City of Gardner Comprehensive Plan and the I-35 and Gardner Road Interchange Sub-Area Plan. This area supports users that are generally on larger parcels and are best located near interstates and major arterial roads. 4 deviation requests were approved as part of the preliminary development plan, as mentioned in the staff report. Another request for a deviation is sought tonight, a deviation from Chapter 17.07050 frontage design, and in more particular, Terrace Frontage, to widen the width limits The petitioner is requesting deviation from the maximum allowed 20% or up to 20 feet, which is allowed in the ordinance. They are proposing to increase their access out onto 188th Street to 31 feet, and that is for their main access drive into the church. The access width limits for Terrace Frontage would possibly cause congestion at this access point with the number of vehicles that will be arriving and departing at this site at the same time. And also the large flared entrance allows for larger trucks to be able to make deliveries without, of course, driving over the curb. The staff is supportive of this deviation. The views on this slide are of the north and south elevations. The south elevation is the front entrance of the church and will be the most prominent elevation as viewed by the public from 188th Street. Total square footage of this building is approximately 71,000 square feet. This is the east and west elevation. The building design and size is appropriate with the size of the lot and its close proximity to the interstate. The building elements are proportional to the building and create a unique structure within this side of our community. Materials include decorative siding and a mix of metal and natural materials. Existing utilities, including electric and sewer, are located along the proposed extension of 188th Street. Water will be extended to the east with the construction of the 188th Street. New Life Community Church, staff finds that this project is consistent with the comprehensive plan. The site is capable of accommodating the proposed building and site design elements. The proposed proposal uses quality architecture and building design and materials. The proposal is compatible with the content of the area, and the final development plan is consistent with the approved preliminary. Staff recommends approval of the final development plan with conditions. And the suggested motion, after review of application FDP 2001, a final development plan for New Life Community Church, tax ID CF 221436-2019 and CF 221436-2018, and final development plans dated February 14, 2020, and staff report dated February 25th, 2020. The Planning Commission approves the application provided the following conditions are met. The construction plans for any utility infrastructure or public facilities shall meet all technical specifications, and public improvement plans shall be submitted and approved prior to the issuance of a building permit. The final plat, FP 19-04, shall be recorded with the Johnson County Records and Tax Administration prior to the issuance of a building permit. Paved access meeting fire department and city requirements shall be provided to the site prior to the issuance of a building permit. Approval of the final traffic impact study and stormwater management plan. Substitute deciduous trees for the northernmost trees adjacent to the deferred parking and space along the perimeter of the parking lot. And provide direct continuous sidewalk or crosswalk from the church to the deferred parking lot.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If the applicant's present, they can approach the podium and speak if they'd like.
Good evening, my name is Chris Bell, I'm the architect for the project, and I'm with Rose Design Group, and address is 15311 West 109th Street in Lenexa, Kansas. So glad to be in front of you today to present this project, which you heard most of it from Mr. Case, but I'll have to let you know the pastor and associate pastors here and the civil engineers here too, if you have any additional questions for them. What they showed was kind of like phase one. There's a future phase, and right now we're trying to accomplish the whole phases when we built, all depending on how the prices come in. So we're design build firms. So hopefully we'll design it and be building it too. So that's the goal, because the gym part would be hopefully be an open community center, be open more for community outreach and those kind of deals. And then also I just want to thank for the staff working with us. They worked well and coming up with a plan that worked out both well with the city requirements, and then also the church needs to come up with a prominent civic type of building. So that was a good process. I want to thank the staff, and you guys have a good staff here on board, and we're just here to answer any questions and concur with all staff recommendations. So if you have any questions for myself or anybody else, just let us know.
Thank you. We may have someone when we get to our commissioner discussion.
Okay, thank you.
So this isn't a public hearing item. If anyone from the public would like to comment on this item, you can approach the podium, state your name and address. Okay, with no one approaching, we'll start commissioner discussion, and as normal, we'll start to our right with Commissioner McNear.
I have no questions at this time.
Commissioner Deaton,
No questions.
Commissioner Simmons-Lee,
No questions.
Commissioner Hanson.
I have no questions, just want to thank staff for answering some questions that I did have, primarily related to the traffic study and things of that nature that kind of fall out of the parameters of what we're here for, so thank you for that.
Thank you. Commissioner Mader,
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Ford.
No questions either.
And as for me, I just want to state that I'm very happy for the community to get this, and I'm very happy with the staff work and with the work from the applicant, so thank you. Okay, with nothing further, I would accept a motion on this item.
After review of application FDP 2001, a final development plan for New Life Community Church, tax IDs CF 221436-2019 and CF 221436-2018, and final development plans dated February 14th, 2020, and staff report dated February 25th, 2020. Planning Commission approves the application provided the following conditions are met. 1, the construction plans for any utilities, infrastructure, and public facilities shall meet all technical specifications, and public improvement plans shall be submitted and approved prior to issuance of a building permit. 2, the final plat FP 1904 shall be recorded with the Johnson County Records and Tax Administration prior to the issuance of a building permit. 3, paved access meeting fire district and city requirements shall be provided to the site prior to the issuance of building permits. 4, approval of the final traffic impact study and stormwater management plan. 5, substitute deciduous trees for the northernmost trees adjacent to the deferred parking and space along the perimeter of the parking lot. 6, provide a direct continuous sidewalk/crosswalk from the church to the deferred parking lot.
Okay,
Second.
Okay. Have a motion by Commissioner Ford and a second by Commissioner Mader. Is there any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor state aye. Aye. Any against? Any abstention? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. All right, item number 3 tonight is Frontier Community Credit Union. And we have A, PP-20-02.
I don't think I need to introduce myself again, do I? Anyway, I'm Bob Case, for record. This presentation will include both the preliminary plat and the final plat. What I'll do is I'll read through the motion on the preliminary, then I'll step aside, let you guys take action on it, and then I'll come back for the final. This request for a preliminary plat and final plat for a 2-lot commercial development on 3.24 acres. Location is the subject parcel is outlined in red. This parcel was annexed into the city back in 1970 under Ordinance 1015. It's the northeast corner of the original parcel was platted in 2014 for the Casey's General Store. The remaining property has never been platted. The City of Gardner Comprehensive Plan has identified this area as community mixed use, which complies with the proposed use of this site. Community mixed use areas are intended to provide retail and professional services for the everyday needs of the people residing or working in the community. These areas are developed with a focus on pedestrian safety and connectivity and support of alternative transportation options. Vehicular circulation and connectivity is accommodated in a less visual prominent pattern, minimizing the number of access drives. Properties directly adjacent to the development are primarily low and medium density residential, and also there's community mixed use to both the south and east. The preliminary plat shows 2 lots being subdivided from the parent parcel. Access from lot 1 is from an existing drive onto Moonlight, and access to lot 2 will be from an existing drive onto Madison. As mentioned before, the limiting access is to just 2 points, along with a sidewalk along the southern border, meets the intent of the comprehensive plan. The layout and design of the final plat is in substantial compliance with the preliminary plat and also the land development code. As mentioned earlier, cross-access easement is being extended from an existing easement to allow access of vehicles throughout the development and also limit drive access out onto Moonlight and Madison. Another cross-access easement is being provided to allow access to and from the neighboring commercial lot to the south. The preliminary plat and final plat are consistent with the comprehensive plan. The preliminary plat and final plat meet all applicable standards in the land development code with conditions as presented in the staff recommendation. And the request is consistent with established goals and policies of the city. Staff recommends approval of the preliminary plat with conditions. And the recommended motion, after review of application PP 20-02, a preliminary plat for Frontier Commerce Park, first plat, located on the west side of Moonlight Road, approximately 240 feet south of Madison Street, tax ID CF 221424-4032 and CF 221424-4028, and preliminary plat dated February 25th, 2020, and staff report dated February 18th, 2020. The Plan Commission approves the application as proposed, provided the following conditions are met. Approval of the traffic impact study and stormwater management plan by the City of Gardner Public Works Department prior to the lease of the plat for recording. Provide a maintenance agreement for the shared access easement prior to the release of the plat for recording. And review and approval at the Johnson County Airport Commission and Board of County Commission shall be completed prior to the issuance of a building permit.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If the applicants present would like to speak on, oh, sorry. Kelly?
Sorry, I just wanted to ask Bob, I think you might have got the dates switched on those. I think your plat's probably dated February 18th. And the staff report's February 25th. So I just think when you read that, keep that in mind.
Flip the dates.
I think you're right.
Okay.
Okay. If the applicants present would like to speak on the preliminary plat, you can step to the podium.
I am Keisha Nickel, I'm the architect. Address is 71 Southeast 29th Terrace in Lee Summit. Don't really have too much to say about their preliminary plat, unless anybody has any questions on it, but.
If we have any questions, we'll ask them during the
Perfect.
commission
Okay.
discussion.
Sounds good.
Thank you. If anyone from the public would like to speak on this item, they can approach the podium. No one approaching the podium. I'll take a motion on the preliminary plat.
Before we start, I have a question.
Okay.
Unless I'm.
Actually, we were supposed to have questions anyway. I jumped ahead. So we'll start commissioner discussion, and we'll start with Commissioner Simmons.
Okay, unless I'm looking at the wrong thing, there's no number 2 on ours.
They added, it looks like, the maintenance agreement. That was not in what was given to us.
Yeah,
The number 2.
did we talk about that before I got here?
No, but I think it's a good thing to have added. I don't know, maybe if you have questions on it, I think that would be a good time for the questions.
We'll talk about the maintenance agreement here in one of the.
The number 2 on the recommended motion was not included in our packet. I think
Right.
that's what.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have any issue with it, I'm just saying it wasn't included. We usually have a discussion before to let us know that there was a change. I don't have an issue with it, I'm just saying. Yeah, good call.
All right, Commissioner McNear, do you have any discussion items?
I'm good.
Commissioner Deaton?
No questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Mader?
No, thank you, I'm good.
Commissioner Ford?
No questions.
I'm good also, so without any further questions, I'll accept the motion on the preliminary plat.
After review of application PP-20-02, a preliminary plat for Frontier Commerce Park, first plat located on the west side of Moonlight Road, approximately 240 feet south of Madison Street, tax ID CF 221-424-4032 and CF 221-424-4028, and preliminary plat dated February 18th, 2020, and staff report dated February 25th, 2020. The Planning Commission approves the application as proposed, provided the following condition is met. Approval of the traffic impact study and stormwater management plan by the City of Gardner Public Works Department prior to the release of the plat for recording. Provided maintenance agreement for the shared access easements prior to the release of the plat for recording. Review and approval at the Johnson County Airport Commission and Board of County Commission shall be completed prior to the issuance of a building permit.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Simmons Lee and a second by Commissioner Ford. Is there any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any against? Any abstentions? Motion passes 7-0. Okay, item 3B FP-20-01. City have any further?
Staff recommends approval of the final plat with conditions, and actually I wanted to address some of the questions that you guys had, because I do have some of these conditions that are on within the recommendation. The approval of the traffic impact study, also the stormwater management plan, and the maintenance agreement have come in, but they came in after the staff report was already sent out to you guys, so I hope we didn't confuse you too much. The recommended motion for the final plat. After review of application FP 20-02, a preliminary, should be a final plat for Frontier Commerce Park, first plat, located on the west side of Moonlight Road, approximately 240 feet south of Madison Street, tax ID CF 22-1424-4032 and CF 22-1424-4028, and final plat dated February 18th, 2020, and staff report dated February 25th. The Plan Commission approves the application as proposed to provide the following conditions are met. Preliminary plat PP 20-02 shall be approved prior to the release of the final plat FP 20-01 for recording. 2, approval of the traffic impact study by the City of Gardner Public Works Department. 3, approval of the stormwater management plan by the City of Gardner Public Works Department. 4, provide a maintenance agreement for the shared access easements prior to the release of the plat for recording. 5, payment of excise tax to the city. And 6, approval of the application by Johnson County Airport is completed prior to the release of the plat for recording. And recommends the governing body accept dedication of right-of-way and easements.
And so I just want to verify, preliminary plat, final plat need to flip on the recommendation. So where preliminary is at, that needs to be final plat?
That should have been final
And where it
plat,
says
that's
final plat, that should be preliminary plat, or am I wrong with that?
I thought they were supposed to be.
After the tax
They're
ID?
they're both
Both
supposed to be
supposed to
fine,
be
they're
final.
both supposed to be
got it.
final
And
plat.
then the dates have to be flipped.
That's correct.
Okay.
Just trying to keep you guys on your toes.
Should and recommends the governing body accept dedication of right-of-way and easements be number 7, or is that just in addition to?
That's just
That's
something how we
just
always
Yeah.
put it on the staff reports.
Okay, thank you. Does the applicant want to come and speak on this one? Okay, that's good. It's time for commissioner discussion. Commissioner McNear, do you have anything for this?
Nothing.
Commissioner Deaton?
No questions.
Commissioner Simmons Lee?
No questions.
Commissioner Hanson,
No questions.
Commissioner Mader,
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Ford.
No questions.
I don't have any, so without any further questions, I'll accept the motion for the final plat.
After review of application FP 20-02, a final plat for Frontier Commerce Park, final plat located on the west side of Moonlight Road, approximately 240 feet south of Madison Street. Tax IDs CF 221-424-4032 and CF 221-424-4028. And final plat dated February 18th, 2020, and staff report dated February 25th, 2020. The Planning Commission approves the application as proposed, provided the following conditions are met. Number one, preliminary plat PP-20-02 shall be approved prior to the release of the final plat FP 20-01 for recording. Number two, approval of the traffic impact study by the City of Gardner Public Works Department. Number three, approval of stormwater management plan by the City of Gardner Public Works Department. Number four, provide a maintenance agreement for the shared access easements prior to the release of the plat for recording. Number five, payment of excise tax to the city. And number six, approval of the application by Johnson County Airport is completed prior to the release of the plat for recording, and recommends the governing body accept the dedication of right-of-way and easements.
Second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner McNear and a second by Commissioner Ford. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any against? Any abstentions? Motion passes 7-0. Now we have 3C SP-2001, the final plat. Kelly.
This is actually a site plan for the Frontier Community Credit Union. Good evening, Commissioners. Kelly Drake Woodward, Chief Planner, to present. You've seen the subject properties already, so I know you're familiar with where they are and what's surrounding them. So the facility is adequately accommodated on this site. It benefits the function and design of the adjacent property by providing for that continuation of those shared access drives between Moonlight Road and Madison Street. Site circulation is adequately accommodated based on the truck turning template that they provided. Note that the access onto Moonlight Road is a right-in, right-out only because there's a median on Moonlight Road there. So they'll have to go up to Madison to turn left, go left or west. The plan also provides for a cross-access easement and paved driveway stub that could accommodate an interior vehicular circulation connection to the property to the south in the future. The applicant has provided two additional elements for optimal code compliance. So one of them is related to the pedestrian and non-motorized connectivity. So there's an existing trail along Moonlight Road, and they are connecting their public entrance with that trail. Also, we asked them to provide that mid-block pedestrian access because of the large block, and to be able to provide an easier way for the neighborhoods to the west to get to Moonlight Road and to this business. That's kind of a look at the overall block and how that will connect through there. The city will have to negotiate and make it happen to finish that connection from Lot 2, which is not being developed at this time, to Evergreen Street and to the sidewalk there. It's a drainage easement there, so we'll need to work with that HOA for that subdivision on that connection. But we're just trying to pave the way for that going forward. So the Land Development Code provides that no use shall provide greater than 20% more than the minimum required parking, which is 9 parking spaces in this case, without documented evidence of actual parking demand. And so they provided us with a letter based on their other operations and proposing 16 parking spaces. So you also have to provide the letter and you have to mitigate that extra parking. So they need 6 spaces at any one time for their employees and the remainder for their members. They do have financial seminars, and so they wanted to have those additional spaces to accommodate their members on the site. They are providing additional buffers and vegetation to screen the parking, and you can see it's spaced all around the building, so it's not a big accumulation of parking in any one space. So that you'll see the shrub border on the next slide. So they've got some large or medium to large trees, including sugar maple, Kentucky coffee tree, maidenhair tree, paperbark maple, and Coosa dogwood. Those are the smaller ones in the front. They have evergreen and deciduous shrubs, perennials, and sod. The only thing that wasn't taken care of is moving some of those larger trees to the area in the right-of-way adjacent to the public trail to meet the requirement for street trees. And we think that there is room there for those street trees. So they have the right number of trees, including the street trees. We just need to have them move some, or they can put extras in if they'd like, so. I think you probably agree this is a very attractive building. It has a variety of complementary materials and parapet heights to add interest to the building. So the entrance is facing north or facing Casey's or their drive. And then you'll see the side facing Moonlight Road has a lot of transparency. So we did get a traffic report. It was submitted and approved. The city is currently designing a signal for Madison and Moonlight intersection that will be constructed this summer, and that should help a little bit with traffic as well. The stormwater management plan wasn't able to be approved yet, and so it's gonna need a little bit more work before Public Works can approve that. So we have a few conditions of approval shown in your suggested motion. Mainly that the traffic impact study and stormwater management plan be approved prior to the release of the plat for recording. The same condition on the Johnson County Airport Commission and Board of County Commission approval. The final plat approval, which you just heard. Relocating the street trees that I talked to you about. Providing that maintenance agreement that you heard about previously. Additionally, if the rooftop mechanical equipment is not adequately screened by the building parapets, because we don't have a visualization of that, so we don't know, then we're just putting a condition that they will screen it in accordance with the Land Development Code requirements.
Thank you, Kelly. Would the applicant like to speak on the site plan?
We'll make sure and get the trees swapped. We didn't do that, we'd done that before, so I appreciate you being so awesome to work with during this whole process, so that was nice, but I don't know if there's any questions from you guys about the design of the building.
All right, we'll ask them when we have her.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, we'll start our commissioner discussion. Commissioner McNear, do you have anything?
Nothing.
Commissioner Deaton?
No questions?
Commissioner Simmons-Lee?
No questions.
Commissioner Hanson?
No questions?
Commissioner Mader?
I don't have anything, thank you.
Commissioner Ford?
No questions.
I don't have anything either. I think it's another good project in Gardner. Okay, so without any further questions, I will accept the motion.
After review of application SP 20-01, a site plan for Frontier Community Credit Union located on the west side of Moonlight Road, approximately 260 feet south of Madison Street, and site plan dated February 14th, 2020, and staff report dated February 25th, 2020, the Planning Commission approves the application provided the following conditions are met. Number one, approval of the traffic impact study and stormwater management plan by the City of Gardner Public Works Department prior to the release of the plat for recording. Number 2, review and approval at the Johnson County Airport Commission and Board of County Commission shall be completed prior to the issuance of a building permit. Number 3, the final plat FP-20-01 shall be recorded with the Johnson County Records and Tax Administration prior to the issuance of a building permit. Number 4, relocate 4 medium/large shade trees to the area of the right-of-way adjacent to the public trail to meet the requirement for street trees. Number 5, provide a maintenance agreement for the shared access easements prior to the release of the plat for recording. And number 6, if the rooftop mechanical equipment is not adequately screened by the building parapets, the equipment will be screened in accordance with sections 17.05.020B1 and 17.08.040A1.
Okay, I have a second.
Second.
Okay, I have a second from Simmons Lee. Any discussion on the motion? Go ahead, Commissioner.
I have just a question for clarification. On the last 2 that we did for this, we mentioned the excise tax, but it's not mentioned here. Is that not part of this final part?
The excise tax isn't really related to the site plan, it's only related
Okay.
to the plat.
Okay, I was just curious. No other questions.
Okay, with no further questions on the motion, I will, all those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any against? Motion passes 7-0. Okay, item number 4 tonight, comprehensive plan amendment CPA-20-01. And
We would like to welcome our consulting group up to talk about the plan first, and then I will discuss the comprehensive plan amendments that go with that for you.
I was just gonna walk out with them.
Commissioners, thank you. Terry Burke-Bigler with Confluence. Good to see you again. With me tonight are the other members of our team, Vicki Notice with Collins Notice Associates, Drew Pearson with Wilson and Company Transportation Planning, and then Marshall Allen, who's with our company with Confluence. We've enjoyed working with the community on this project. Just about a year, a little bit less than a year now that we've been working on this. And is this, you want me to control this? Okay. So okay.
Terry, did you have your presentation of your own that you?
I don't.
Okay.
I can use that one if you don't mind. Or if you have another one, like the one from last, available. So while she's doing that, just to hit on a couple of the initial goals of the project, when we looked at the public spaces that were an offshoot coming out of the original Main Street corridor plan a few years ago, there was a real desire to create a heart in downtown. So that was one of our defining goals. Within that, we wanted to define the users and the program for the downtown green spaces, provide flexible and interactive commons to promote social inclusion and civic identity, relate public spaces to the surrounding context and properties, define the experience of those spaces, so the experiential quality for the visitors, honor the community's aspirations and vision, and then respect the site and the budget. Another part of this key component of the project is streetscapes. And the driving goal there was reinforce Gardner's downtown identity through the streetscape. Key points within that: define the character of the streetscape, accommodate a balance of vehicular and non-vehicular activity, so expanding from just pedestrians to all modes. Ensure that design is authentic to Gardner, so something that fits and is Gardner. Promote pedestrian and vehicular safety, recommend technically viable solutions, improve conditions for those with mobility challenges in navigating downtown. And there's a couple things that I'm just pulling from this report. I believe you all have a copy of that. You've had a chance to review. The key issues I'm going to touch on relate to public spaces, streetscape, ADA facilities, and parking and mobility hubs. So the real key success factors or outcomes of this project relate to those 4 areas. Public spaces we've defined, some great new public space just behind City Hall, just to the north of City Hall, that looks at introducing a market facility, looks at revitalizing Cornerstone Park, and then also connects those two spaces with the central green space. Streetscapes, we look at an area essentially from the park down to park, from the park to park. Okay, there we go. So from Washington Street on the north to Park on the south. And I'm going to try to go through these quickly. This is similar to the overview that I gave a couple of weeks ago. And then from Center on the west to Sycamore on the east. That's the area that we focused on for streetscape. Throughout the area, there was a priority placed on accessibility. Drew and some members of the team took a group out on what we refer to as a walk and roll. So an opportunity to go out and survey the area with folks that might be mobility challenged to get their input on things that can be improved. Some of those things make their way into this plan as big ideas. Some of the outcomes from that is simply go on to a working list, if you will, for Public Works, just to help them identify things that, are just deferred maintenance and common maintenance items that they need to be working on. But related to streetscape, it helped us to identify areas that as this moves into implementation, that needs some significant attention for access to buildings that are adjacent to Main Street and things like that. So as we're proposing streetscape improvements, we're understanding the magnitude of impact, maybe to raise sidewalks, lower sidewalks, and things like that. It's not just about putting in street trees and furnishings, but we're actually trying to improve the accessibility of the corridor. Oop. I lost my... If you want to go on to the concept plans, keep going. There. So let's start here. So just kind of a snapshot of what the overall streetscape proposal looks like when it comes together. We gave the community a couple different options for how to approach streetscape from a design standpoint and aesthetic standpoint. This general arrangement of parts and design approach is what they gravitated toward. This looks at that primary intersection of Elm and Main. This would be a view if you're looking up above Grinders, looking up to the northwest City Hall in the distance. So you can see, some introduction of some brick paving or at least some colored paving treatment that highlights that intersection. Improved bulb outs, so we're adding additional space for landscaping, potentially some vertical monuments or neighborhood marker type things that help signify that this is a place. This shows the introduction of the median that was carried forward, actually all the way from back in the comp plan through the Main Street plan and shows up again here. And then it looks at the opportunity to improve the crosswalks, just make things more, and street trees make things more attractive and comfortable for pedestrians. So we use the term a lot of times when we're doing things like this to make this area sticky. It's not something you move through quickly. It's something you want to slow down. And we can do things with the design of the street that help to slow people. We don't need to rely on signs to do that. So by narrowing the apparent street as well as the physical width of the street lanes, we can slow traffic, still maintain the throughput that KDOT will require, but we can actually alert drivers that they're in a special place and they need to slow down and pay attention, and that this is a place for people. Oh, I can do it now too. Oh. Okay, so this is just down at ground level or at street level looking at what that could look like. Really not a hard definition of what goes on those monuments, for instance, right now. That's part of that next phase of design and really getting into some of that character detail and thematics. But the idea is that we're incorporating some of the elements that are common in the architectural vocabulary of the corridor. So brick, stone, things that fit downtown Gardner, but creating these spaces for people to sit and enjoy, so that these are the types of things that can continue to attract more of these shops to the downtown area that the community said they wanted. More kind of casual dining, not necessarily fast casual, but something a little better. The breweries, things like that, that give people more reasons to come downtown and spend time as well as dollars. Okay. I mentioned Mobility Hub. So we worked with ATA, had a couple of sessions with them to talk about where we could look at introducing a Mobility Hub. A Mobility Hub essentially is a place for multiple modes of transportation to come together. It's in the name, the hub. So this idea of, there's currently a stop at the corner of Center and Main, just south there by the bank. We actually looked at a location up on Shawnee, kind of challenged that a little bit, came back, met with the ATA and Ride KC. And this location at the southwest corner of Center, or the northeast corner of Center and Park, where it's shown there with that yellow dot, they feel like that is a better location. This is ultimately going to be the end of their line coming down this direction, or at least that's the plan change that's coming. And then from here south will be more short shuttle service. So this loop works out pretty well for them, where they can come in off Main, loop down to Park on Sycamore, pick up folks at this transit stop, and then circle back and head back east out toward the other park and ride location that's farther out east. So let's go to the next one. So this is what that could look like. So essentially, a Mobility Hub is an enhanced bus stop. Shelter, you've got an opportunity that you could brand that with something that's unique to Gardner, so people know when they're getting off at the downtown Gardner stop. Maybe there's places for bike share, scooter share, things like that. You've got charging station for scooters and bikes, so that as those things come to downtown Gardner, you've got a place that people can queue up, thinking about that last mile of transit. So folks that want to ride the bus or ride transit in the future to work can hop on here. They can ride a bike here, leave it. They can rent a bike, ride home, things like that. Okay. So now looking at the overall plan for the green spaces. You can see City Hall there in the middle of the page, and then looking to the north, just behind, there's the public market. There's a note on there about botanical garden. That's sort of botanical garden or, interpretive garden, maybe some sort of prairie restoration project. A lot of flexibility in what that could become. Moving to the north into an amphitheater lawn and event seating that would be in that central space. And then up into the park. There's the concept of a new multi-purpose building that could go in there. And I'll show some images of that. And then just kind of a flexible lawn space, playground upgrades, and then some sort of water feature that's this splashy thing that kids can play in. And then along Center, trying to add some additional density here to support, again, a way to attract some additional businesses if we can get some additional foot traffic 24 hours, is the potential for some residential infill apartments. Those could be potentially even active senior housing. We've heard there's a need for that for folks that want to stay in Gardner but are aging out of wanting to care for property. And then they've got the services in downtown that are walkable for them. And then potentially even just to the west of City Hall, redeveloping that corner into something that's maybe a higher and better use than what's there today. So as you look at some concepts for that, you can see there on the left that view that looks kind of down to the northeast over that mixed use redevelopment at the corner, some 2, maybe 3-story residential apartments on top of some structured parking there. And then you can see the other improvements in Cornerstone Park in the distance. We've called out what right now is just generically referred to as a vertical element on Main. So what we're looking at in this concept is on each side of City Hall, creating these little pedestrian portals that will connect you from Main Street back into what's now more of a pedestrian-oriented civic space, back where that market is, which shows up there on the right-hand side of that slide. So just to the east of City Hall now is a drive. I believe there's a drive and parking. I don't know that it connects to Main Street, but there's more parking there on the west side of City Hall. But the idea is to convert those to more public amenity spaces and allow people a glimpse in The vertical element is just sort of this vertical cue for the passing traffic to catch their attention, make them kind of want to slow down and see what's back there, so that in the future that might be something they want to go check out. And then you can see the notion of this farmers market structure that would be introduced right behind City Hall. Still serves for parking during, the weekdays, in the evenings, or whenever the market is open. Then the farmers can back up and park up under that, and then the shoppers walk under that shed, much like happens at the Overland Park Market. There was question throughout about parking. Essentially the concept, we are not displacing, we're not eliminating any parking throughout. In fact, we may gain a couple of spaces. Parking is being redistributed around the area. So in this area right now, behind City Hall, you have the group home and you have the parking lot. So this concept would require a relocation strategy for the group home, and then redistribution of parking in that area. We've talked to the library folks, they're in favor, think this is a great idea, provide them some opportunity for some more outdoor programming. So that's part of the next step, is continuing to cultivate those partnerships, because that's what this whole project will take, okay? Another view of that, so I mentioned the library, now it's just kind of in the forefront to the right there. The red or pinkish tone that you're seeing there, the idea is that that whole area would be paved more like a plaza, not just an asphalt parking lot. We've talked about potentially introducing some porous paving in that area, as well as even in that sort of green space just to the right of the market, that there's an opportunity there for introducing some bioswale, rain garden type treatment facilities, so that we're introducing the sustainability aspect at a scale and in a place where people can see it, so it's an educational as well as a functional tool. And then you see that diagonal walkway that connects you from where this vertical monument or that little portal is, all the way up through the green space and then back up to Cornerstone Park. And then a little, maybe seems small, but an important thing that really got a lot of attention was this image to the right. So just in front of that vertical monument, the introduction of truly accessible parking on that end of City Hall. So as opposed to parking on the end or back and having to come around to get to this accessible entrance, the ramp, we actually have proposed installing at least one accessible street side parking area there, so people can disembark and access the sidewalk there accessibly. And then there's the additional, the reintroduction of accessible parking that still occurs back there in front of the library. So essentially real close to the place where it is today, okay? Another view, just kind of swinging around of that area, you can see a shade structure and some garden in that space. Again, those sort of that outdoor classroom opportunity for the library to take advantage of, or even for other classes from the school. This garden could be a place for them to come out and have activities as well, or just for families to hang out in between activities during the fair or during other times of the weekend, okay? Here's a view spun around. Now we're looking to the south. We're hovering over Cornerstone Park. So I mentioned that multi-purpose community building. The concept came from something that was visited during a bus tour at the beginning of the project out in Independence. And they have an open air market, and then right next to it they have a market structure that's basically garage doors, so it can be a year-round use. Folks felt like there could be an opportunity for something like that in downtown. And as we talked about, where can the city control that? What does the city own? It seemed like that could be a good complement to the park and just expand the functionality of the park. And then also could function for expansion of fair activities as well in that proximity. So another view looking to the north through that green space. This maintains east of that, or to the right of that main walk, is still maintained as kind of the Perks church's lawn space, but a partnership can be struck so that there is the introduction of this amphitheater lawn with shade, a place for festivals to occur, or just, informal things that might be complementing a nighttime event. and then these apartments on the west providing their own parking at street level, and then building up podium style above those with 2 or 3 stories. So you're adding some additional density, and those then become some very attractive units that look out onto this park. And then another view from the north looking down over an updated playground, water feature back toward that green space. You can see the multi-purpose building there, and the concept being if the garage doors were open and you can move in and out of that space. So it's very flexible use. And then you can see the apartments in the distance as well. Okay, that's the same image. Yeah, I think so. So I think that really, I think that's the same image, but that's it. Essentially what we've done since then is we have worked with staff. We held our last steering committee meeting, we had a scenario exercise to talk with the steering committee about how they could see prioritizing implementation. The one thing that we can guarantee about this project is that we can't guarantee what order things will occur. A lot of this is market driven. The city, with this document and with some thoughtful input from staff and steering committee, is equipped to be able to react when the market dictates. So for instance, a scenario could be that a developer says, this is kind of interesting. What would it take to do a deal where these apartments are? How could I do that? Well, the city can now say, hey, if you do want to do something, here's our vision of what that could look like. And now you start having those productive conversations about, well, we as the city could do X. Developer could say, well, if you can do that park, that might help me do my project. So there are those types of conversations that can happen now. Streetscape, now it's a matter of here's the vision. There's some additional grant opportunities out there that we've talked with staff about, and those are going to continue to be part of the discussion. So as projects get pushed forward, now there's a vision for how to prioritize those. Or if there's some other thing that we don't even know about yet that comes up that says, you know what, now it's time to do Main Street, or now it's time to do Elm because of some project opportunity that comes forward and sees this and says, hey, if I put my restaurant or my shop down here on the south end of Elm, would you guys be willing to help and get my streetscape connected to me? So that's how this tool can become helpful. And we've got the implementation, kind of an understanding of order of magnitude cost, so that city knows, okay, what would our investment be? So it's really a toolbox to pull from. You just don't know what tool you're gonna need all the time, and it's not always a hammer. So I think I would be happy to answer questions, or I'll get the smarter people up here to do that for me.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Will? Okay. Kelly, did you have anything that you wanted to?
If you don't have any questions for.
Nope, doesn't look like it.
So what we would like you to do now is to take action to amend the comprehensive plan to incorporate this plan by reference, but also to make some simple changes in the body of the plan to fold it into the bigger part of the plan. And so the ways that this plan contributes to the comprehensive plan are, you have a redlined annotated changes there in front of you, but the commercial area objectives that are addressed by this plan include things like creating the thriving downtown, the streetscape master plan, redesigning Main Street, and that orientation to the pedestrian-oriented design. Also, the transportation and mobility objectives. This plan addresses ADA improvements, at least within this area. Also, community facilities and open space called for a central location for events, and I think you can easily imagine a lot of different kinds of events being held in these spaces, which are designed for passive recreation, and as Terry mentioned, also stormwater management. New recreational facilities at the park and in between City Hall and the park. community character. We have been trying to work on creating some gateway and wayfinding signage, which is accommodated in this plan. It also contributes to that identity and sense of place for downtown, which is more important as we grow beyond our area here. And then that compatibility with the fairgrounds, Terry also mentioned that they could perhaps flow into those spaces during the fair. And then the stormwater best management practices that we hopefully will address in more detail based on this plan when we get into design. So I won't go through all these images that you just saw, but I will stop on this one. We had a nearby business owner that was a little bit concerned about the relocation of the mobility hub here. You know, because of the fact that it's gonna be sort of a park and ride as well. And, or at least that's the plan. It's not set in stone yet because KCATA needs to do a ridership survey, figure out if that works for people to move from their current location to this location. But in their mind, the Transportation Authority's mind, their current location is not working. They think this location would work. You notice there's angle parking and also parallel parking on this street. All they really have to do is stop the bus and pick people up, and hopefully we'll have that enhanced shelter there. So it's a plan. You know, maybe if something bigger is needed in the future, we could work with the bank and that vacant spot and see if we could do something a little more involved. Okay, and so we would recommend that you hold a public hearing on these comprehensive plan amendments, including the incorporation of this Gardner Destination Downtown Plan, and forward a recommendation of approval to the governing body. And here's your suggested motion. If there's no further questions.
Anybody have any questions for Kelly? Okay. At this time, we'll open the public hearing on CPA-20-01. If anyone from the comment would like to speak for the public hearing, please approach the podium and give your name and address. With no one approaching the podium, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner McNear and a second by Commissioner Ford. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor state aye. Aye. Any against? Any abstentions? Motion to close the public hearing passes 7-0. Now we have commissioner discussion. Commissioner McNear?
No questions at this time.
Commissioner Deaton?
No question.
Commissioner Simmons-Lee?
No questions.
Commissioner Hanson?
No questions?
Commissioner Mader?
I don't have anything, thank you.
Commissioner Ford?
No questions.
All I'll say is a couple of us have went on the tours, and the impact that projects like this have done for other towns has been significant. And so very happy to see this, and hopefully Gardner will be able to do something with it. So having said that, I'll accept the motion.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt Planning Commission Resolution Number PC-20-01 to amend the following portions of the City of Gardner Comprehensive Plan. Cover page, Chapter 1, Introduction, Chapter 3, Public Participation, Chapter 4, Visions, Goals, and Objectives, Chapter 5, Land Use and Development, Chapter 9, Image and Identity, Chapter 10, Sustainability Framework, and Chapter 11, Implementation, and to adopt and incorporating by reference the Gardner Destination Downtown, a Placemaking and Mobility Enhancement Project Plan, and recommend the governing body approve the amendments to the City of Gardner Comprehensive Plan and adopt and incorporate by reference the Gardner Destination Downtown, a Placemaking and Mobility Enhancement Project Plan.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Mader and a second by Commissioner Ford. Any further questions on the amendment? All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any against? Any abstentions? Motion passes 7-0. Okay, this closes our regular agenda items. We now have we have one more regular agenda item, number 5. Election of vice chair, which we had in our last meeting, and we found out that we do need 4 votes for the vice chair, and we did not have 4 votes for a vice chair, so we have this in this meeting now. So I will accept nominations for vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Commissioner McNear.
We have a motion, or Commissioner McNear nomination. I'd like to nominate Commissioner Mader. Do we have any other nominations? Okay, all those for Commissioner McNear for vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
And that was Ford and McNear, right? Is that it? Okay, Ford and McNear, we have 2. And those in favor of Commissioner Mader, state aye.
Aye.
And that was the rest of us, right? Commissioner Deaton, you said aye. Okay, so we have 5 votes for Commissioner Mader, which makes her the vice chair.
Good.
Do we need to do anything else with that second number? Okay. All right, now we're done with the regular agenda items. And we have discussion item number 1, smaller lot, single-family housing in Gardner Land Development Code.
Okay, we decided to add this agenda item for your discussion tonight because we have started to get some inquiries from developers who want to utilize the smaller lot, more compact, single-family building type that we added to the Land Development Code, excuse me, in 2016. So we just want to give you a heads up and prepare you in advance, just with a little knowledge of what this entails. So that we don't have to spend a lot of time the next time when we have a lot of applicants here. And so some of you weren't here when we adopted the code. So Gardner Land Development Code is a form-based code, and it focuses more on the overall development pattern, the relationship of the buildings to the streetscapes, and then, which is also the public realm, basically, and the design features as viewed from those public spaces. So it's based on street types, open and civic space types, street types, and building types and frontage types. So we're gonna focus tonight on the building types and frontage type, and just specifically a couple of them. But just starting with the street that kind of lays out the foundation for everything. We have a local standard street that is really meant to be applied to subdivisions that already existed before we adopted this code, when we really had no specific development pattern in mind. So most new neighborhoods are meant to utilize that local neighborhood standard. And so the main difference between these 2 street types, which are illustrated at the top, is the target speed. And so the neighborhood street would achieve slower speeds through those narrower travel lanes and narrower parking areas. The trees are spaced more closely on those neighborhood streets because the driveways are narrower, so that gives you more room for trees. And all of that helps make the area more pleasant for pedestrians. So another thing to know, just for future reference, is even though the local standard street type says 5-foot sidewalk on one side, we've always put sidewalks on both sides of the streets. But that is what this says, and so that's an option. So the detached house suburban is pretty much what you see all through Gardner. You can see the development standards there. It's mostly 8,000 square feet minimum lots, 70-foot wide, with front-loaded double-car garages on the homes. The detached house neighborhood building type, which is in the red, allows a minimum of 6,000 square feet lots, 50-foot wide, but limits the opportunity for front-loaded garages, and we'll talk about that more. It's meant to pair down in the table below in the red boxes with the neighborhood street and either the terrace or neighborhood yard frontage type. And what a frontage type is it's talking about what happens between the front of the building, the front building line, and the front property line. So basically your front yard. So this is a comparison of the main distinguishing characteristics of the detached house suburban, which is those larger lot, suburban house, single-family lot building type, and then your neighborhood building type, which is those smaller lots. And mostly it has to do with the lot size, the lot width that we just went over. The suburban one had a larger front setback for the homes. You'll notice on the Neighborhood one, it says the home needs to be between 10-foot setback and 35-foot setback. So it's a range, but it needs to be within there somewhere. And then 40% building coverage maximum on the smaller lots, 30% building coverage maximum on the larger lots. The additional thing that the detached house neighborhood building type has is the garage limit. And some of you have talked about this before when we talked about duplexes and garage limits. We have the same thing for single-family homes. So if you are going to have a front-loaded garage for the detached house neighborhood, it's 25% of the front facade. So let's say it's 50-foot wide lot, you have your setback, so it's a 40-foot wide house. 25% of that front facade can be a garage door. Most communities measure the whole garage, however big it is with all the walls. We just measure it from the door. So if they set the garage back so it's less prominent, they can have more of that front facade be garage. So that's how you get the opportunity for your double car garage, potentially. At least that's how it's set up. So this is a real life example, this one's actually duplexes, but it's kind of similar in character. If you imagine each of those are separate, the ones with the prominent garages on the bottom, the one with the garages in the rear, or some other access on the top. So you can see the difference in the character of the neighborhood that's created by those garage limit standards. And what that is meant to do, those garage limits, because these lots are small, they're close, they're tight, they're narrow, we're trying to not have frequent repetition of blank garage doors along the frontage. We want to have a little bit more active public space, creating a more pedestrian-oriented place instead of a vehicle-oriented place. And then we'll look at some examples of this throughout the area of where communities have done this. So then each of those building types goes with a frontage type. And the two most common ones used for single family is the suburban yard, which goes with the detached suburban building type, the neighborhood yard that goes with the neighborhood yard, or neighborhood detached house neighborhood building type. So you can see there is a pretty significant difference in driveway width between the suburban yard and the neighborhood yard. The driveway width is the percent of the front lot width that can contain a driveway. So it actually limits the width of your driveway. The hardscape limit is how much concrete you can have as driveway in your front yard, between your front building and the front lot line. You'll also see that two things that the neighborhood yard frontage type has that the suburban yard doesn't have is, first of all, that front sidewalk, the entry from your house, your door, to the public sidewalk, and then the required building frontage. And that means of that lot, the width, the 50 lot width, 50% of that would need to have a building up in that 10 to 35 setback range. So we need to have 50% of that lot, as you look at it, be a building. The terrace frontage type is similar, except it does allow a little bit bigger driveway, 20% instead of 15. And it's for buildings that are set very close, more like within the 10 to 25 foot range. Neighborhood yard would be as if your house was set back a little further. So let's look at how this works. Oops. So this is your detached house suburban building type, typical 70-foot wide lot. If you calculate the access limits for that, you can have a maximum driveway width at the throat there, the pinch point right by the sidewalk, of 21 feet. And then you can flare out from there up to 40% concrete in your front yard, basically. And you guys said change that at one point, you had increased it, so we could do that. The neighborhood building type with the neighborhood yard frontage type, let's say you have a 50-foot wide lot. At the 15% access width limit, the maximum driveway width for a 50-foot wide lot would be 7.5 feet. Well, you can't really use that for a driveway, right? So what it's trying to do is encourage you either to have a little bit bigger lot, maybe a 55-foot lot, so you could have a 10-foot driveway, or have alternate access, which I'll show you. But that might be something that we want to change, just so if somebody does want to do 50-foot wide lots, maybe make it 20% so they can have a 10-foot driveway. And that's applicable not just at the right-of-way, but the entire area up to the front of the house. After that, it can flare out and get bigger. So this is complicated, but I got lots of images to show you, so hopefully it'll be a little simpler. This is more the terrace. See how the buildings are so close to the roadway there, and so the focus is on the entrance of the house. You got a small yard, so that's the only difference really. So just trying to understand the intent of what's going on here. On the left would be your drivable subdivisions and what they look like, and on the right would be your walkable neighborhoods. That 15% access width limit is kind of noted there as to which ones kind of achieve that alternate access versus the ones that don't, that would exceed that 15% access limit. Let's look at that a different way. These are the different ways that you could potentially have alternate access to garages without having those front doors be the prominent thing. So, you know, just a single driveway back to a double detached garage turned, you know, various ways. You could have an attached garage with a side access, attached garage with rear access. You could have a single driveway, the one on the top right, that flares out because it's set back a little, so you can do that. If you make your lot a little bit wider, you may be able to have a double car garage on the front, side access or front access. You could have shared driveways, or you could have a common lane or an alley behind the houses. These are all things that happen at the design stage, so that's why we're introducing them to you, because you're going to see some designs. We want you to just understand what you're looking at. So this is how the code shows the alternate access. Where access is limited by the standards, you're supposed to be able to utilize these different things. And so the double driveway is really for larger lots with wide frontages. The single to double is for smaller to medium-sized lots with narrower frontage, with front or side-loaded garages. The single driveway is supposed to be for smaller lots with narrower frontages where you really don't want a lot of interruptions in that streetscape. And here's the example of the shared drives and then the common drives that can also be used. So now let's just look at some real life examples. I don't know how many of you have been to Brookside in the metro area. Some of these examples are older neighborhoods, some of them are new. So you'll notice here that every home has a sidewalk connection between the front entry and the public sidewalk. The development features narrow shared driveways that go to rear garages. You can see, might be able to see it a little bit better here. And this is another look at it from a different angle. So it's like one garage building, but one building has half of it and one building has the other half. This is what it looks like at the street level. I think you can imagine that's a pretty peaceful walking experience for pedestrians in the neighborhood. There's another view. And there you get to see the houses on the smaller lots with quite a bit of character to them. This one, you can see that detached garage down that shared driveway. And this one. Okay, and this one is around West 72nd and State Line. I'm not sure what neighborhood that is. Pretty similar, again, with the sidewalks and the shared drives. This is a look at the street and the homes. This is the Waldo neighborhood. Oops. So this one has a mix of front and rear access garages. So this looks a lot like what we just looked at, but then here's one that has a little single car front garage and then a rear detached garage. Here's another one. Okay, this is a new development in Lee Summit. And so this is more like a master plan project, has mostly common access drive to rear garages, which create kind of an alley effect. You'll see that mid-block connection there, about middle of the slide. That's for pedestrian access. Here's another look at it. You can see that internal rear garage access strategy that's being used. Kind of like the traditional alleys that we would have here in our downtown. This is what it looks like on the street with some fences. And then those are what the alleys, I guess you'd call them alleys, but that's where everyone's garage is. And that is a pedestrian connection. Northgate, North Kansas City is a large development. The ones that are more rectangular and longer are one-story structures, and then the others are two-story. They got a little bit more green space around them. Again, common access drives to rear garage access. In this picture, you'll see how they arranged some different buildings around a common open space, fronting that common open space with the internal access drive around the edges. And then that driveway with the red arrow there provides rear access to the garages of all those single-story homes. So there's just one driveway on the street, and it goes back to those rear garages. This is a view of the single-family homes. They terminate in apartments. So this development has been able to incorporate a lot of different housing types within this one development. It has on-street parking here for visitors or additional vehicles, which is probably pretty handy. And that also serves to separate this sidewalk here basically from the moving traffic, because you notice there's no green space between the sidewalk and the curb. And this last one is a neighborhood in Denver, very compact. You know, a lot of people that don't want to have to deal with yards, they might find this very attractive development. There's a lot of access strategies that are used in here. There are some front-loaded single family on the outside edges of the development. You'll see the driveways there. They have common internal access drives, and then they do have some homes oriented on that green space as well. And this is the other half of it. On the lower edge there, you'll see that the orientation of some homes on a small little green space with their rear garages that are kind of going vertically. So it's a little different look. This is what the community looks like. Again, very walkable, brings all the activity up front. This is one of the small, compact homes with the garage. The garage is set back a little bit, I think. So we just wanted to give you kind of a preview of developments that would meet or possibly meet that neighborhood, detached house, neighborhood building type with that neighborhood yard frontage type. There are some abilities for flexibility within our code that it's built in. and I want you to be aware of those. We have administrative adjustments. So for example, for an administratively approved site plan, which is one that doesn't come to you all, the director could grant these administrative adjustments based on these standards shown on the slide. If it's a plan, like a site plan for Frontier Community Credit Union that you saw tonight, that comes to you, they could ask you for an administrative adjustment based on these standards. So this process provides for some minimal flexibility for minor modifications, and those adjustments are supposed to equally or better meet the purpose, intent, or design objectives of the regulations. So when that administrative adjustment would come before you, staff would provide you with information on what is the purpose of the standard, or the design objectives, and whether we think the proposed development meets that standard. And then you would have that final decision whether to grant that modification or administrative adjustment. There's another process, which is plan development, which you saw for the church tonight. Plan development process is supposed to encourage innovation in development, unique and distinctive places, efficient use of land, buildings, and infrastructure. And so the process supports greater flexibility. And it, you could easily imagine that Denver project that incorporates a lot of different building types and a lot of different elements and densities needing to go through a plan development process because maybe it wasn't anticipated in their code. So these departures also are not supposed to be justified just because somebody wants deviations or flexibility from their site plan. There are these things on this slide that would justify flexibility modifications. So that does allow modifications to pretty much everything in our code. Street types, frontage types, uses, design, everything. As long as you come up with a solution that, helps in one of these ways. So you've got some more flexibility there. And that's all I had on that. I suppose you might have some questions.
Well, one I had, and sorry if anybody has any, just for information on the alleys, how do they typically do the maintenance on that? I assume that it's not a street for the city, and is it an HOA covered, or do they have the owner own so much out into the alley?
Yeah, typically it would be an HOA, or, it could be a public access easement that they have a maintenance agreement for. But usually it would be their development company or their HOA that they set up. That would take care of those.
So would the same apply for the shared driveway? It would be governed by the HOA, so it wouldn't be an argument between the property owners as to who was going to repair the driveway when necessary. It would just be
Right.
understood inherently.
Yeah, our code requires if you do use shared driveways that you have to have a maintenance agreement signed by the parties.
Okay.
Quick question, would that go with each property transfer then?
Yes,
And what if someone didn't want to do that?
then they should not buy that house.
I can see a can of worms here. I'm sorry, that's just an opinion, but, I see, a lot of this being good ideas. I have some big concerns about shared driveways between property owners on a common 10-foot single driveway. I just see too many, opportunities for disagreements to happen.
Understood, it's probably not for everybody, so.
But I think what you're trying to accomplish is just kind of a blend of different entryways and access points, so that it's just not all kind of bland as you go down the block.
I think that's a really good way to look at it. They could use several different strategies in one development and provide that diversity.
Yes.
Just as not an answer, but as a continuation of Mr. McNair's conversation, we do happen to have one subdivision which plans on providing the shared driveway between quads, and that is a maintenance provided
Right.
item, and so that disagreement doesn't occur. So I think you're correct. You could have issues on private enterprise people that maybe don't understand that their responsibility jointly with their neighbor. But in this particular instance, the development agreement or the HOA, whichever kind of organization you want to talk about, is actually providing deferred, or not deferred maintenance, but providing the lawn mowing, the snow removal, the making sure the trees stay healthy, you know, those kinds of things. So it's part and parcel to what you have, and also these are for sale or lease. So if you want to own your fourplex, part of your fourplex, you can.
I agree, Larry. I think that's, you know, when we start getting into some of these kind of areas, you're gonna have to start getting into stronger HOAs, maintenance agreements, and stuff to where the maintenance and the administration of it is taken over by an HOA. I guess where my concern was on shared driveways is in private properties. You know, if family A and family B share a single 10-foot driveway, what happens when children leave stuff out, when, you know, stuff is on the driveway, when somebody parks, and, you know, and you just, from a practical sense, you could just, I could just see all kinds of opportunities for disagreements to come down the road.
Yeah, you learn to love your neighbor.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, that's why some people move to HOAs and some don't move to HOAs, because some want those rules and some don't. And to be honest, as long as they meet the maintenance agreement and that type of thing, it's not really anything for us. But in my travels around the country, I've seen developments like this throughout. It's not like it's like something that's a brand new state-of-the-art type development. When I go to those neighborhoods, I think they look nice from the front. So if someone wants a small yard, which isn't everybody, then it's not a bad way to go.
Kind of like the fact that we're actually doing some things to encourage parking behind the houses, because our town is full of parking in front of the houses.
Yep.
Did you have anything?
I just kind of look at this and say, you know, we're gonna have to really kind of think about it pretty clear, because what we do see in town is a lot of parking in front of houses. I agree. On our street, it irritates the bejeebers out of a lot of us. And but you know, the other thing is, when you start choking down driveways, when you start taking away parking space, you know, within a private residence, that's going to only encourage one thing, and that's more parking on the street. The one thing we're trying to kind of get away from. And you know, as we look at these and put design standards out, and we start saying we got to limit garage spaces and these spaces and those things, we got to be, I believe we got to be pretty thoughtful and careful about how we do that, because the possibility of getting unintended consequences out of some of those things could be pretty high.
Okay. Does anybody else have any comments or questions? Okay, thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
All right, that was the last item on our agenda for tonight, so I would accept a motion to, sorry. Go ahead,
I'm sorry, I do have one more quick item
Okay.
for the Planning Commission. Some of you are new, and some of you have been around a long time, so what I'm going to say is it's kind of ingrained into a couple of you, and the rest of you I'm going to do a reminder call here. We basically are expecting to have, in the next couple of months, some items brought before you that are going to be not necessarily controversial, but will have a large audience. And in retrospect, in the past, when we've had those types of activities, some of those folks want to talk to you prior to your meetings and prior to the time that you have to review staff reports and actually have a discussion in a public forum, which is where you're required to have your discussions. So just as a reminder to all of you, if someone sends you an email that has some information about a particular project, just forward it to staff and we'll answer that. Or if someone accosts you in Price Chopper and you're picking up the melons and the eggs and they want to talk about a project, please just remind them that you're one member of a group that can only discuss the projects when you're together, in this forum, in this building. And that if they have questions, just please direct them to staff, or if they have written comments, and they force them upon you, bring them to staff, and then we'll make sure they get into the public format. And then at the meeting, when we do the when we do the declaration of whether someone's talked to you about a specific, thank you, at the beginning of the meeting, then, you know, we can put all that up front so people know what's going on. So I just wanted to let you know that we are expecting to have some items come before you that's going to have more input from the public than you've had tonight. So, which is good. We want that public input.
Yeah.
But it's just something you have to take into consideration, that there will will approach you occasionally outside of this format, and you kind of have to be careful how you handle that. So that was all.
I'll add, when we have a large turnout for that type of meeting, I think I've had 3 of them. I'll probably try to explain the public hearing a little bit more at the beginning, so they kind of understand what the procedure is, and hopefully that will help.
It will.
Kind of organize the public hearing a little bit,
So that's all I had. Thank you. I just wanted to touch base on it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Let me just add one thing on that. So, the reason for that disclosure at the beginning of, like rezoning applications is because when you are hearing rezoning applications and things requiring public hearings, you're sitting in what's referred to as a quasi-judicial capacity. And so what that means is you are only supposed to take action based upon the evidence that's presented to you in this room and in the packets. So you have to be really careful if you are talking to somebody about their project, not to say, but before you hear the presentation, I agree with you, you've got my vote. You don't do or say anything like that, because that can come back to bite you. So.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a motion from McNear. I have a second. I have a second from Commissioner Ford. All those in favor for adjournment, say aye. Aye. Any against? Motion passed 7-0. We are adjourned.